All right. We're going to give it just a minute or two.
Okay.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. All right. So hi, everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar about our recent solution, Immix Site-Link, as you can see here. I'm Erin Bullard. I'm the Director of Partner Relations for Immix. So I manage our technology integration partners, and we're really excited to have our first ever Site-Link partner, Camect, here with us today. I'm going to go through just a quick overview of the agenda, and then after some introductions, we'll get into what Site-Link is. So really we want to accomplish, getting you guys that understanding of what it is, what makes it different, and really how it can help you, whether you are the person working directly with the end customer, whether you're installing and integrating the system, or whether you are the one monitoring it. And then we will have Camect give a quick demo and an overview of their system and the way that the integration works. So just some quick housekeeping before we get started. If you have questions, feel free to use that questions section to answer them. We have some people in the background who will try to answer them as we go. But if we don't get to it, we'll have a Q&A at the end. And if we run out of time, we will try and follow up with those via email as we are able to. We do have, I believe it's the resources or materials section where you can find some PDFs. There should also be a video in there. And if you have any questions or anything that comes up, if you have any issues hearing, feel free to just pop that in and we should be able to address it. So quickly, let's maybe do some quick introductions of my friend Scott. Scott, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, I'm Scott Harrington. I'm the key account manager over here at Camect. Been in the industry for a good while. A lot of you probably already know me. I know Immix fairly well as well. So we're looking forward to exploring this new opportunity for y'all.
And we should have Steve joining here in just a little bit. So he will pop in closer to the demo.
Yeah.
All right, so to kick things off, and actually I'm going to go back one, we have a quick poll for our attendees. So if we can go ahead and launch the poll. We want to better understand some of the pain points that you guys have, when you are implementing a new solution and where you guys, struggle. It's coming in slow, but we're coming in. All right, so we've got some IT, lots of lengthy onboarding process. Taking over non-integrated equipment can be difficult, false alarms. Looks like the onboarding process might be the biggest headache right now. We'll give it just another minute and then we'll wrap it up. All right, looks like those are pretty stable.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and close that. So good to know. So Site-Link, what is the Immix Site-Link solution? So one of the big headaches that I think we've all felt in the industry, which can quickly become a full roadblock for many of us, is the complexity of getting outbound traffic from a customer site to a monitoring center in a secure way. So while the majority of us don't have PhDs in network security, we do all understand that it's critical and can certainly have a major impact. So companies hire those IT professionals, and very frequently they have strict regulations on how to manage their network. They can shut down an opportunity really quickly. So with this solution, it was critical that it not have port forwarding. So not only does it make the solution and the integration more secure and a lot simpler, but it also makes the customer's IT guy your friend. So rather than your enemy and rather than that roadblock. So really giving them the peace of mind without you needing an IT savvy person who's involved in every sales opportunity that you have or every deployment. So with Camect, we do have a feature-rich integration. It's the Camect Immix Site-Link integration, and it's a feature-rich integration with their smart hub. So it can be used to take over just about almost any existing camera that may be already on the site. So kind of your magic black box, if you will. So this gives you a very robust integration, as I mentioned. So it's feature rich, which means that you can really create a robust service offering and you can standardize on that, whether you are installing the cameras fresh or whether you are leveraging something that's already there. And talking about the setup and onboarding process, obviously that was one of your biggest headaches from the audience. We really wanted to make sure that the setup and onboarding for integrating a site, connecting it to the Immix platform was really as seamless as possible. So we want to make sure that you can get set up and provide monitoring services more quickly. With that, I do want to take another minute real quick and ask another question of our audience so we can get a feel for how long it typically takes you to set up a site. We do I'll set the parameters here. We're thinking of like a fairly straightforward 12 camera site, pretty typical analytic setup, intruders after hours type of deal. All right, so 1 to 4 hours seems to be pretty typical. And if there's, a specific time that's not in there or that is more specific, feel free to put that into the chat or into the questions. All right, we've got somebody who said less than an hour. Wonder if they're already using this. All right, those also look pretty stable, so we can go ahead and close that poll. Okay, so hopefully that helps to give you guys really the narrative of what Immix Site-Link is, why we created the solution, and also why we chose Camect to be our first ever partner with this. There's a lot more that they can offer, and so now I will hand it over to Scott to give you a little bit more information on Camect. And Scott, I'll navigate through these. Just tell me when you want me to change slides, and I will shut it now.
Thank you, Aaron. You can go ahead and change to the next. So just a little bit about Camect for those of you who are not familiar with who we are. Just Camect was founded 2016 by two former Google employees with a goal to provide the most accurate and reliable video analytics and AI, with still providing an easy to deploy and cost-effective solution. That's kind of how Camect came about. They spent a lot of time refining its ability to be accurate and reliable way before they ever rolled it out to the pub to commercial use. The Camect Hub, is like Aaron was saying, is a black box that sits on the edge. So you put it in a site. There's no need for any rip and replace of equipment. Almost all on Viv or our cameras that provide an RTSP stream can be brought into our Camect Smart Hub and provide a quick link into Immix. So our goal there was to not have to worry about pushing anything out to a cloud or to offsite for resources, but to be able to just use this connection straight into Immix. Again, simply to add the hub, literally put it on the same network as the cameras, point it to Immix, and it pretty much takes care of everything else. And now with this, doing that, we had an integration prior to Site-Link, and then what we found was people were having hardships, as we were talking about earlier, with dealing with firewalls and getting IT permission to punch through those. So with Site-Link, what we were able to do with Immix is remove that need for pushing through firewalls by doing removing the port forwarding. Aaron, you can go to slide 6. And not only was the hubway the gateway into Immix, one of the other things that we wanted to talk about is, it's elevated the operation efficiencies, as you see here. Again, we saw some of your comments on how long it takes to install things. And one of the things our goal here was not only to give you the ability to not have to worry about port forwarding and making the connection safer, but was reducing the labor cost, right? Getting rid of the port forwarding need, which tends to help also make the IT group tend to like this a lot more, a little bit more friendly with everyone involved. And instant results, right? How quickly can I get this set up? How much resources am I going to reduce my need to have on hand in order to take a site over or move it on? One of the things that we do see a great deal of is the impact that it's having with monitoring centers operators in itself. As you can see here, one of the things that we have seen, and we'll show you a case study here toward the end here, that we drastically reduced the flow of alarms coming in, which allows us to right size that alert volume that's coming into the center, right, for the operators, which then reduces the workload you have on the operators, makes them happier, makes things work smoother, even gives the customer at the other end a better experience, gives your operators an ability to engage more with those end users by saying, hey, by the way, everything's going well, things are going great, no activity, or here's what we've prevented from happening. And we hope that encourages more business growth, right, for all our clients. Aaron, you can go to the next one even.
Yeah, Scott, I was just going to say, I mean, especially with this example, I think back to, my time in a monitoring center and, um, the number of times that spider webs can really be your worst enemy. And you miss detections because of that. The operators truly get burned out from seeing alarm after alarm come in when there's, a spider web that's changing focus of the camera, and it's definitely a pain. And so I think being able to really address this and get down to what matters is so helpful.
Well, and as you can see on the video right there, right? If you won't go back on, which I'm sorry, Aaron.
Sorry.
You saw in the video right there with the insects, right? We're ignoring those. With the Camect focusing on detections and classifications that are important to a monitoring center, like people and vehicles, especially in unwanted areas. We also are classifying over 30 other objects. And that is a way that we identify, hey, this is an insect, this is a bug, this is a fly, this is a bird. We know what those things are, so we immediately identify that this is something that they do not want to see. So we don't even have to worry about, we're not sure what it is, but we know what it is, so we don't send it. But other features that on top of that too, like you're saying, it makes things even more efficient and more accurate, is our ability to do detection of loitering. We have those things like loitering, line crossing, audio talk down, multiple features that can enhance the engagement with either potential criminals on site or even staff that's walking onto a site being reminded, hey, you need to disarm your system. By the way, whatever that may take to help prevent disruption or deployment of other resources such as law enforcement and or security officers. We can go next. So this slide talks a little bit about kind of a few things we did mention. Our flagship that you see there is our 24 megapixel. This is where we tend to see the most deployed. It's not. It is where we see, I guess, most of our monitoring centers using is these 24s, deploying them out to a site, and literally putting it on the network, that the same network the cameras are on. It discovers the cameras for you, and literally you point it toward Immix, set up your Immix site, going through, and we'll go through a demo. Steve will show you kind of how that's done, and bring all that straight into Immix. I mean, you talked about the time it takes. If you saw a lot of the over a couple hours to set a site up, or over an hour to set a site up. This type of setup that we're talking about, you're talking 20, 30 minutes at the most, in most cases. Um, we can scale up to larger units if you have a larger site. We have a 60 and a 96, but another one that we do like to see deployed, we do see a lot of deployment into mobile trailers or harsh conditions, where there may be some extreme exposure, is our rugged unit, which is a 24 megapixel but rugged unit that provides protection against the elements, as well.
I think one of
Um,
the things here that, again, we're just very well aligned on is the fact that there are multiple options. We know it's not one size fits all. And there's, definitely a lot of ability to scale here and take over existing.
And we could spend a lot of time talking about, like Aaron was saying, but there's so much that we can adjust and do with these devices that, if there's any use cases that are unusual for you, just please, let us know, let myself or let Aaron or Immix or Camect know. We're happy to have a conversation on how to help solve those conditions. As I said, we are extremely flexible when it comes to deployments.
Absolutely. And
So,
so I guess to touch on customer success, Scott, I'll let you kind of go through this,
yeah.
get
Okay.
real results.
Yeah, this one was a customer that was actually having a very difficult time with their alert volume coming into their center. I mean, as you can read through these things, when they had 750,000 alerts per month coming in, real events were getting missed, customers were unhappy, employees were getting discouraged. It just was, and it's very common to see that all those impacts happen when you just have an influx of just unwanted information. And so what was happening is they came to Camect and deployed our hubs. We were able to reduce their alerts from 750,000 a month to 30,000, and really eliminated almost the majority of their false alerts. Everything that we were sending in were really actually true identified targets that were needed to be seen. Maybe not a threat, but were real events, that triggered the event. The business outcome, again, as you can read here as well, and we can talk through it. Um, I'm sorry, reduced down to 30,000 alerts. But then when they brought Camect in, we were even to bring them down a whole nother step, down to 3,000 per month, where you're talking going from a 750,000 alerts per month down to 3,000 alerts per month, which gave them an ability to grow their business. Obviously, um, we right size their alert per operator volume, if that makes sense. And it just overall saved their business, if you think through it. Retention on customers as well as their own employees.
And I mean, that's a huge reduction. I think one of the things, looking at kind of the challenge and the outcome, the fact that they were losing customers, again, because they were probably missing things, they didn't have good reviews, it wasn't necessarily the best service, and the fact that just reducing the alarm count allowed them to improve customer satisfaction and start to scale their business. I mean, you add in the fact that you can deploy this much more quickly, as you were talking about in one of the last slides. People want that instant gratification, and being able to get it set up and have that proof of service, start more quickly, and they don't have to wait weeks to get it set up and configured and the analytics working. It does make a big difference, and I think these numbers really speak for themselves.
Sure. Well, and we see maybe not to 750,000 a month. Sometimes there may be some more that are more than that, but there's some that are less than that. But it's a meaningful impact if you can reduce that volume, even if it's only by a few thousand. If it impacts everybody in every shape of the business, why would you not do that for a cost-effective solution that is extremely um, accurate and reliable? When you couple, the Immix and us together, and you do the site link where you're removing the port forwarding, it is a very quick and meaningful instant gratification, as you said, Aaron. That it's the easy button. It truly is.
Yeah. And again, not to spend too much time here, but looking at the volume of alarms from the monitoring center perspective, like, gosh, the operators had to be so burned out receiving alarm after alarm, most of them false. It's not a great employee experience. So being able to have them respond to things that they actually add value to and can take action on, it really improves that employee component as well.
It really does.
So,
Dealers love it. Your dealers, when you talk to your dealers, they'll love the fact that it's easy to deploy. The centers love it because it just makes things so much cleaner.
so before we get to the demo, we did talk obviously about this being a very robust, feature-rich integration. So, I'm not going to go through the full list of integration features. You can read it for yourself. But, in addition to just having connection to the live video and the suite of analytics that Scott was referring to, um, it does have two-way audio, which really is an incredibly valuable tool for an operator, like I was saying, to have that immediate value and impact on managing an event so that, they don't necessarily need to dispatch police. And it's really helping to prove that impact of the service to customers, that they're able to warn off intruders. It's a great deterrent. And the other feature of note that I do want to touch on is playback of recorded video, and for the operator to then get immediate visibility to what triggered the alarm. So you've got both the attached clips, so whatever Camect is able to send to Immix, as well as automatically being able to retrieve, a number of seconds of that recorded footage, which again, very valuable asset to a monitoring center to really be able to take action even more quickly. And this does allow you to create a suite of services, whether you are responding to alarms, analytic or otherwise, do video verification or do proactive video tours. And of course, kind of maintain that system health and make sure that the devices are online. So without further ado, I will hand this over to Steve to kind of go through a demo. And like I mentioned, note that there is a longer video on Camec's YouTube channel, and I believe we have it linked in the materials or resource section.
We do, yeah.
Perfect. So over to you, Steve.
Welcome, everyone. So I'm going to go over some bullet points here and some key features within Camect. This is an account that you can see we have multiple hubs on, and I can go through and access various accounts. Once I get beyond 20, I can then search by name, and we have a search engine that's built in. Within the hub settings, when we go into a hub, first thing that you want to do is make sure you've set up the alerts and what it is you're looking for. Camect is object detection. So unlike what you might have been used to, where you had to set an area where you want to detect that is outside of any tree or brush movement, or maybe a flag that might be waving, with Camect, it's all object detection. So we don't care about the fact that there's trees moving in the background or flags. What we want to do, though, is select just the objects that we want to look for. Now, there are tons of different objects and categories that we look for. You need to pick just the one that is appropriate for your site. Don't list them all and then have to go in and say, well, I don't want to see this and I don't want to see that. So the first thing would be selecting the types of objects that you want to see. So I'm going to add all vehicles and persons. I can also put time constraints to that. I can do that here, or I can do it on the monitoring side. So if you want to do time constraints, you can add as many as you want, choose no detection, do specific dates. If I go in and edit here, I could say just weekdays, weekends. It's quite flexible. We also have, I was mentioned, the ability to do talk down. We also have voice alerts. So within that, I can edit and add devices. It can be the onboard speaker within Camect, or actual remote speakers that are OnViv or Access speakers compatible. We have the ability, when we do maskings, which I will show you, you're doing like alert ratings to do specific things like maybe loitering, or we can have an escalated path of what is being sent down over a speaker to maybe have somebody move out of the area before it actually goes to an alert to the monitoring station. all sorts of customized features, long distance, sensitivity mode. These are going to be used for things like cameras that have high resolution and you need to see out a long distance, beyond 100 yards. And sensitivity mode might be if you're using thermal cameras or night vision that's not quite as good. Now, the big question is with Immix, how do we integrate? If I go here into add monitoring and I choose Immix, it's a couple of pieces of information that we need. One is the device ID. Now, the device ID is when you go into Immix and you set up a site, and I'll just quickly switch over here. When you go in and set up a site, when you finish everything and you've added it all, at the end you get a summary report. There's going to be a site ID on that. And once that report generates, you can take that site ID, in this case it's 64, and you're going to punch it in here. And then the SMPT server. Now, in my case, the SMPT server is right here. It's camect.immixcs.net. And that will be my server, and I would paste it here. And that's what you need on our side as far as the information from Immix. We also suggest that you go in and you add the cameras here and make sure they match up with the channel IDs that Immix has. So if Immix shows this front camera as input 2, then you just simply change it to 2. Once you've done all that, you can do a simple test. I will switch over and show you on the Immix side what you need to do to connect Site-Link and be able to integrate Camect now to Immix. But first, I just want to finish and go through the interface here. We have other custom messages that can go out. If you want to delay messages go to monitoring by a certain amount of time, and before that, send out an audio message that goes out over a speaker. You can send custom messages here. This might be helpful for somebody who's an employee, shows up before the site is disarmed, and it's a reminder to him, hey, you need to make sure to disarm the site. And we also have the ability to break cameras out that don't have to follow all of these settings that you put up. Maybe not all of the cameras are on Immix, but one of them doesn't need to be. So you simply could just, remove that one camera or give it different settings. And then I want to go into one camera here and just show you as far as setting up alert ratings. Now this is where maybe you need to do something customizable, like I'm only looking for loitering. So we're going to add a new rating. And you may have been used to systems that require you, like I'd mentioned earlier, to set a positive area, meaning you have to define where you want us to look for alerts and don't make it in an area that's going to be busy with tree movement and that sort of thing. For us, that doesn't really matter. I'm going to go here and I'm going to choose person as the object that I want to exclude from the entire image. Now, I can edit the area here by doing, normal maskings and sort of do this. If I'm going to mask out the whole area saying I don't want to see general traffic, then I don't have to do anything. I can just leave it like that and just say, okay, no people. But I do want to look for people that are loitering. So I'm going to choose person. And then I want to detect loitering. Now this is where I can escalate it up. I can change the time. I could say after 10 seconds, maybe I don't want it to go to monitoring, even send an alert. Maybe I just want to send a message that tells them, that they need to leave. And then I can go to the next rule, which is maybe just going to send an alert message to guards that are on staff or whatever. They can get it, and another message, and then go up, and we can escalate that out all the way to monitoring. So it is quite flexible. And you can customize this, put as many escalated voice messages as you want. But that is how we would use our rating rules. And this is just one example for something like loitering. Another might be if your camera is pointing at a road in the background and you say, I don't want to see any vehicles. So I'm just going to add all vehicles. And then I'm going to mask out the area. And maybe it's just out in the back here. No vehicles will be detected, but everywhere else it will be. And then finally here on the Camect side, are mouse over controls. And these are, various sort of breakout controls that you get for all sorts of things, from going to a specific calendar date. I want to go and look at July 1st, hit OK. It's immediately going to take me there. I can go fast forward, rewind, pause. I can go down to the timeline here. I can change it to be more granular. Maybe I want to go in the last 10 minutes and update the timeline, and I'm looking for motion within that period of time. You also see that over here, if I click on this, I have a thumbnail of activity, and these are all alerts. So I simply can click on one of those. It'll take me into that event. I can see where the activity was. It draws a box around it. It also puts a red line around sort of the center mass of where that is. It'll be sort of a squiggly line if they were to walk quite a ways. But each of those alerts, you have the opportunity to also to have that bounding box to make it easy for the operator, for his eye to draw to wherever the alert is. You can change the playback speed. If you're just watching through and you say, I want to go to 18 times, and then it'll start ramping up. And as it sees activity, it'll slow back down again when there's an actual alert. And I can switch back to live. Now, this icon right here, when I click on this, I have bracket capability where I can bracket out an event. So if I go live and I go to time lapse, these little brackets I can put to the right or left of an actual event, or maybe a period of time. Maybe I don't want to do a month, that's going to be quite a bit, but maybe within a 10-minute period of time, I say, and I'm moving my mouse along here and I'm looking and saying, yeah, right around January 17th or June 17th at 6:56, I'm going to click on that timeline. I'm going to put a bracket on it. And then I'm going to go over here and click and put a bracket on it. Now I've got the ability to download that. I can do it right to my computer, to a thumb drive. I can share it to somebody in a physical manner, or I can click share. And from share, if I've got my own drive, like a Google Drive or something I want to share to, I can do that. I can send it an email. This is the preferred method for sharing video clips from us. So, you find a video clip and you click on it and play it and say, yeah, this is the event. You simply go right here and you can go right to share. You don't even have to bracket it out. And then where it says Camect Cloud, if you click that, give us a little write-up about what it is. Maybe it was somebody crawling on their knees in the shadows and you were looking for dogs and people, and we picked it up initially as a dog. And you want to let us know about that. And we'll take that video, we'll run it through our learning algorithm. This is the best way to share video clips with us, and just simply click share. You don't even have to have your own cloud site. You can utilize ours. But yeah, great way to be able to share video clips. And then with that, I'm going to switch over now, and on the Immix side, I want to show you a couple of things that are going to be needed from the Camect side of it now in Immix. So this is a site that I've created, and you'll first choose what the sort of the operator is, whether it's a Camect site, it's Camect Site-Link. You have a long list in that drop-down box that you can choose from. You can give the site a name, and then you're going to need these three things are what need to be defined. One is the password, which is a token. One is the hub ID, which is unique to the hub, and I'm going to show you where you get those. And then you want this box checked where it says video pass-through. And let's go grab that information. So a couple of ways to get the hub ID. One of them, I can just click here and I can go full screen, and it's going to be everything after the equal sign. All of this. That's the unique. It's basically our name that we give the hub, so it knows where that hub is located in our ecosystem. Another way to find it is click on the gear icon and then click the I next to the hub name, and you can find it right here. This also gives you other helpful information about the hub, what the operating temperature is, how many megapixels you have on the hub, if you want to change the port to see what your WAN address is, stuff like that. Now, if you have a dealer account, and then we do /dealer, right down here is where I'm going to copy my token. So I can simply copy that, and then I go back here and I paste it under password. So this is the hub ID. This here is the token. I'm going to use video pass-through, and then I will simply just click update and to pull in the configuration. And that is sort of the CliffNote version of going through and setting up Immix to Camect, and from what Camect needs from Immix. There's very little on either side to be able to make that relationship.
Steve, I gotta say, every time I see it, I feel like I learn a little bit more. I love some of the things that you guys have in terms of being able to, set those escalated audio messages. Again, it makes things a lot easier that the operator knows that by the time it gets to them, there have been, several attempts made to deter whatever activity. So lots of flexibility.
Yeah, and also, talked about sometimes we see even site managers using it to get them the alerts. Hey, I want to know during the day when my employees maybe are in certain areas and not, versus getting someone to monitor it. So we can drive permissions to what gets sent where based off of whatever that alert is and maybe what time it came in.
If I could interrupt real quick, we have a question asking if Steve can show where to get the token again.
Okay. So I'm going to request to share. So you just go to home.camect.com/dealer, and if you're registered with us as you become a familiar with Camect and you've done your first hub, we usually recommend that you choose an email that's going to be used to set up your hubs from then on. Then that email gets sort of registered with us to be a pro user, and you will then have access here under home.camect.com/dealer. And then this API key is going to be good for the account. Each Camect hub is going to have its own Site-Link subscription. So if I go in to a subscription here, I would have a Site-Link subscription that is added to my hub, and that would allow it to work. So it's really one API key that's going to be used for all of your sites. So once you've got it once, that's just a copy and paste on all of your accounts. You will have to have a subscription that says that it's Site-Link enabled. But that's how that would be processed.
All right. There we go. Give me just a minute to bring this back up. All right, so just to kind of wrap things up, we did want to highlight some of the benefits based on kind of each of those different stakeholder. So in terms of the end user, they've got network security compliance. They get to leverage investments that they've already made into existing equipment. And they do have those smart alerts that can be sent out to a monitoring center using Immix and detecting on real threats. So not just motion, not the 750,000. So that really does mean a lot fewer false alarms, false positives, and that, of course, in turn means they don't have to worry about event overages. In terms of the integrator, also that port forwarding, it makes your conversation with the customer's IT guy short and sweet, and you can standardize your service offering, which does set that consistent user experience, and it also makes training your sales team a little bit easier. And while you also care about the fewer false alarms, and that of course helps to reinforce that positive customer experience, the fact that you can get it set up fast really matters. And then for the monitoring center, the fact that you won't be receiving a lot of false alarms really means your operators can focus on what matters. And there are very few limitations around what services you can provide. So you do have kind of those value add opportunities to maybe upgrade those services for your customers. And of course, simplifying the setup and onboarding process means that you don't need to block out hours of time to get a site set up. As Steve illustrated, it's fast. You need 3 pieces of information to get it connected, and it brings everything in. And you also don't have to go back and forth with a dealer or an installer to get a site set up and get things working. So again, just for everybody, it really creates a much better experience overall. Scott, anything, or Steve, anything to add before we move into Q&A?
No, one of the things that is we truly look at this as a partnership, right? With us, with Immix, and with you all as our partners. We don't like to really be called a vendor, I guess. We'd rather be called partners. As we want to help you as much as you need it. So just don't ever hesitate, to reach out to any of us and ask those questions, because we are here for it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, do we have any more questions?
So Aaron, I'll jump in here. We do have several questions, so I will take them in the order that they came in. Here's one for the Camect team. If there are no direct connections to a PoE, will the NVR work on Camect?
Yeah, you can do an RTSP stream from the NVR. So instead of going to individual IP addresses on a PoE switch where you're on the same network, this is something that we do all the time, where we want customers, if they've got equipment, not to have to tell them, oh, you got to take out your NVR, you got to move it all to a PoE switch. There's no work that's involved. All you do is put in the IP address of the NVR as part of your RTSP URL. And then you're simply changing the last 3 numbers in many cases, where you're saying it's going to be channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4. It's very easy to do. Once you've done one, then it's just sort of cut and paste to add the other one. So even behind a firewall of an NVR, we can still add the cameras.
Thank you, Steve. Next question, I believe I can answer this one. Can video events through the Camect Hub be seen in the Alarms tab in Immix, or is it video only viewable through the Camect dashboard? No, absolutely. Those alarm events can be received in the Alarms tab in Immix. That's the whole other half of this integration partnership with Camect. Is not only does it enhance the setup process and improve efficiencies there, but it also gives you the ability to receive those intelligent alerts in the Immix interface. Let's see. Next is, are the AI and analytics being done in the cloud or at the edge on the Camect device?
It's all being done on the Camect device, on edge. We don't send anything to be processed in a cloud variation or on a different resource offsite. It's all done within the device itself.
One of the nice things too, when you're have a trailer and you've got a cell connection, you don't have to take all that video and process it out somewhere else and all the cost of that. It's all being done locally, and it's only then the alerts clips that are actually data being used.
A great point.
Next question is related to sizing your hub as compared to the cameras you're using. So how do you size a hub compared to the number of cameras deployed? Is 20 megapixels up to 20 megapixels in cameras calculated off of the mainstream or the substream?
So I think for us, we've got our own best practice, which is you might have 4 megapixel cameras, and for us, it's like drinking from a fire hose. We don't need that much to do what we do really well. So a good rule of thumb for us is maybe 2 megapixel. We can even go as low as 1. But a 2 megapixel camera, even if you're pulling the substream off of that, giving it to Camect, that's more than enough for us to do, most of the detections, unless there's some rare cases where you need to have something to be able to look out, a couple hundred yards, and you have the resolution to support it. The other thing would be it's a 24 megapixel hub, and it's always good to maybe leave yourself a little bit of breathing room from that top end in case you turn on features like long distance mode and sensitivity mode. Those will consume a little more resources. So you don't want to just click it just, sort of haphazardly and say, well, let's just see what it does across 10 cameras, because that will add extra resources for every camera. Only use it where needed. So if maybe you go up to 20 megapixels, that does give you a little bit of breathing room in case you had another camera or you added some of those other features. You're not already topped out at the 24.
Thank you, Steve. Next one, a little bit about pricing. Is it pricing per camera or per appliance?
We price it per appliance, and if they're interested in discussing that further, they can reach out to us and we can kind of talk through that with them.
Right. Good question here. Does it have an auto reboot function if it loses connection after a certain amount of minutes, for example?
Well, the logic within the Camect will keep trying to reconnect. So it won't do a physical reboot, but it will do a logic reboot to try to reconnect if the network's dropped, to make sure that it can reconnect again. So it's pretty robust in that regard.
Okay.
And it does have from the software too. It does have the ability, when you log into the interface, you can reset it from there as well.
Okay, something a little more specific related to hubs versus camera counts. For hubs, can you estimate what it will take for a 32 camera site versus a 270 camera site?
Once again, it comes down to megapixel. Sometimes just because you could put 50 cameras on a 96 megapixel doesn't mean that you should. Maybe breaking it into a couple of smaller systems might make more sense. So it really comes down to the megapixel count. If I, sitting down with somebody and specifically looking at what's the resolution that they have and how many cameras, because even if we had one where you could put, theoretically you could put 200 cameras on, the hard drive can't keep up with it. So you've got to be cognizant of that. And so an R96 megapixel camera or hub is not meant for 50 2 megapixel cameras. It's meant for somebody that wants to have higher resolution cameras and have less of them, but have higher resolution cameras on a hub, because that's important. So it would just come down to looking at what the resolution is of each camera, how many you want. Sometimes not having a single point of failure is nice. Having 3 hubs where you might be able to get them all on one, but maybe it's better to have 3 and you can have some double coverage. So you don't have one, potential outage that takes out all of your cameras.
Okay. When processing the Immix alarm, does it provide live stream as well as the playback of the alarm clip at the same time? I can answer that. The answer is yes. This works the same as the majority of any Immix video integration. It is designed to receive both the alarm clip, or the audit footage as we call it, as well as display the live stream at the same time, along with the ability to toggle to any other live camera on the system or use the multi-view capability within the Immix site monitor interface.
And I will also make the note that it sends it through with the bounding box.
Yes.
That alarm image, yep.
Are there any minimum resolution or frame rate restrictions?
As far as frame rate, we'd like to see at least 5 frames per second. Probably no more than 15, because then you're just wasting resources at that point on us. So somewhere in there, 10 is probably, maybe right in the middle, a good target, but you could go as high as 15. As far as resolution, 2 megapixel is what we would say is a good rule to shoot for. But cameras that have even much lower resolution, that aren't shooting out at a large wide field with a view, but maybe inside at a loading dock or something, we do quite well even at those lower resolutions. So from a megapixel to 2 megapixel in most sort of close quarters where you're shooting down from a wall down into a parking lot, we do fine with that. But I would say 2 is going to be sort of the final answer as far as what our best practice would be, 2 megapixel.
And the last question we have so far is there a mobile app interface for this? If so, would it be possible to see it?
I can try to do that. UD Mobile or Camect Viewer is the name of the app. I've got an emulator on my computer here. So let me bring it up first, and then I'll see about sharing.
And while you're doing that, I'll just make the note that, if you need to contact us, here's, a way to get a hold of either one of our companies directly. Otherwise, feel free to reach out to any of us on the call, your account director, or whoever you've been working with.
Yeah, and one more question came in while we give Steve time to pull up the emulator. Is there an availability to get a demo unit for testing?
We do a demo units for people for testing. They would buy the unit, and we would supply them with that unit. It's kind of where, like Steve was talking about, we want them to set up their first one, even if it's in a demo environment where they have it to the office, where we can help them kind of learn the hub before we make them into a pro dealer and move them into hard production. So we typically recommend that to take place before they go out to pushing that into production.
All right, so the app looks like what we call our progressive web app, which is if you go to home.camect.com and bookmark it, it's going to turn into an app, and no one else is going to know you're not in an app. But we also have one for push notifications, and this is an actual native app, and it ultimately is going to mimic your experience that you have right now on your phone. If you just go to a browser, home.camect.com, save it to desktop, and it will take out everything that makes you think you're in on a web page, and it turns it into an app. So right now, this is for viewing alerts. You'll notice when you go to the app and you click on some of the other features, like the gear icon, it just says it's not available yet, coming soon. But it's mainly something we released early so people would have the ability to have a native app on their phone to get push notifications. We had all of that working. So I click on a camera and I can see my thumb reel down here. So everything related to viewing alerts and going back and looking at timeline, all that stuff, you can do all that with the app. But the configuration portion of it right now is not currently available.
Okay, that is all the questions that we have. So Aaron, if you want to maybe show that contact slide as we wrap up.
Absolutely. All right. No, great questions. And seems like we were able to get through all of them. So if there are any questions after the fact that you didn't think of now, or you want to look at a demo or see, more features in action, feel free to reach out to any of these. Like I said, reach out to any of us directly. You should know how to get a hold of us pretty easily. And appreciate the Camect team joining us today and presenting, really what you guys do. And very excited about the Site-Link solution.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.